Welcome to the Home Services Success Stories podcast powered by Peakzi, the #1 AI platform for growing your home services business. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have another great show in store for you today because today we have Gaige Baisch, who is the head of marketing at Fast Home Services. Gaige, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Julian. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. Excited to learn more about you and, of course, the business of Fast Home Services. So let's jump in. So, Gage, tell us a bit more about your role at Fast Home Services, specifically as the head of marketing.
I lead marketing over at Fast Home Services. What that means day to day, really is a variety of things. Obviously, overseeing our digital strategy, really our go-to-market strategy across the org. So, Fast Home Services is in the greater Seattle area, the greater Portland area, the Bay Area, and LA, Orange County specifically. So, obviously, a lot of surface area to work with. Some days is more focused on general strategy, what's working, what's driving revenue. Other days are a little bit more in the weeds, working with our agency partners like Peakzi to understand what folks are searching for, where we're winning and losing in regards to fast or water heater replacement near me, being a common term that we're trying to rank for in both the traditional and AI search engines. So again, some days it's more heavy on the blog writing and the optimization around specific web pages or ads, really anything in between. So I get to wear a lot of hats, very involved in content creation, and again, really anything on the sales or marketing side over at Fast. The company name itself is right on the mark in terms of how quickly we move and the overall way in which we look to serve our customers and communities that we're a part of.
So, really, all things marketing. It sounds like you mentioned wearing a lot of hats. So, you're like strategic and tactical, which is a big role to have. So, what do you think you love most about what you do in terms of marketing and specifically being a leader in home services?
Yeah, I think just being able to affect the outcomes that we care about most, being comfort inside of the home for our end customers. I like, as you've mentioned, wearing a lot of hats every day is a little bit different. Again, some days I'm in executive facing meetings trying to figure out, where we're headed, what we're doing, what's working. And, some days I'm sitting down with folks like you, getting to talk a little bit more through the day to day and, just getting to spend some time having a little bit of fun.
Sounds good. So, well, tell us a bit more about your background. You weren't always the head of marketing. So, where did you come from before? Did you come from home services? Tell us a bit more about your backstory.
Yeah, I've spent time primarily in the Seattle area in the home services industry. I've worked at a couple companies providing similar services, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical to the Seattle market. I also spent a little bit of time on the B2B side at a HVAC optimization kind of software AI company where we got to work with very, very cool clients and help them save energy related to their HVAC systems, typically in a commercial setting like a university or a manufacturing facility.
Okay, cool. So you definitely come from the industry. You have some broad experience also working in the tech side of things. So, well, I guess given your insight into the industry and also Fast Home Services, what do you think that Fast Home Services does uniquely well that allows them to stand out as a home services leader in your market?
Yeah, I think Fast really stands out in that speed to quality niche. There are a lot of folks that do things quickly, and there are a lot of folks that do things, at a very high mark in terms of quality. And I think Fast is able to do and, really exceed in both of those areas, which in the home services industry is quite the challenge, but it's something that, we have definitely accomplished since our inception in 1986 and continue to focus on today. What that looks like is keeping the end customer in mind, really through the entire journey from that first phone call to when we're leaving the house, ideally with, again, the outcomes typically being comfort. So whether that's restoring hot water that, wasn't hot before we got there, cool air in the summer, and really anything in between, trying to do so in a way that's quick, quality, and transparent from a pricing and kind of expectation standpoint.
So really focusing on the customer first and then designing all product, service, and solution around that. So I think that's a really great point. So how long have you been at Fast, Gage?
I've been at Fast just under a year. I think it'll be a year in July.
Under a year. Okay, okay. So let's talk a bit about talent culture and hiring, because as you know, as we all know, it's the people that make an organization great, right? So what do you
Absolutely.
think sets Fast apart as a place to work? Like what truly sets your team and culture apart?
Yeah, I would say both in the office and in the field, Fast has a culture that is focused on, again, I've mentioned the customer several times, but also the team and the employees that make up the organization. So we are big on promoting from within, and we're big on finding the right place for people, even if it's not necessarily the most traditional channels. An example I'll give, we got an awesome gal who oversees our permitting department. Previously was with the org in accounting, and leadership was able to determine, this was before I got here, that we had a challenge in the permitting department. We didn't need to go outside of the org to solve that problem, and was more so architecting a team that we thought would benefit from some of the strengths that this person had, and just kind of reshuffling the deck, if you will, and getting people into those positions where they're going to thrive. That's true of a number of folks within the org, again, in the office, now in the field. I know that the gentleman that oversees our Portland division was previously one of our top performers in the field for that team. And just to kind of round out, how we find these ideal positions for people that are already a part of the family. It's really just based on communication, kind of from the top down, and vice versa from the bottom up. Understanding, just, hey, like, we have a really strong member of the team, and we likely are underutilizing them based on these problems that become apparent throughout the course of the year. And in moving someone internally as opposed to hiring from the outside, if you will, enables us to move faster. Again, to kind of reiterate the name, and is much more plug and play, and reflects, in my opinion, very positively, just based on the feedback we hear from these folks, that they feel heard, seen, and empowered to make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's key. One of the things that I heard was that you really look at people as individuals, understand their kind of unique strengths and gifting, and seeing where else they could add value within the business, because everyone wins that way. You fulfill a particular part of the function of the business, as well as you get more out of that individual that experiences more, fulfillment, I guess, right? So I think those are good points. So from a training and development perspective, like why, as far as your technicians or office staff or whatnot, what are some examples of how Fast invests in their people?
Yeah, I think we do, the standard things in the industry, bringing in the manufacturer reps to ensure that our folks in the field are getting the best and most up-to-date training on any new products, any changes in the industry. Again, very much table stakes. Where we're a little bit different, both in the field or in the office, we have a variety of resources available for training, both interdisciplinary and cross-functional. So if we have someone on the permitting department who is very interested in AI and software and system administration, and things that are very, very different, for example, from the permitting world. Again, we have training resources in place where that person could go and pursue these other skills that they hope to acquire to potentially move into a different part of the organization. I bring up that example because that's something that is actively in flight now. We had a very strong member on the permitting team who was able to get a degree in computer science while they were an employee here at Fast,
Cool.
doing an online degree, and have very quickly moved them to own a number of things in our CRM on the system admin side, and very, very quickly understanding what options we have related to kind of the AI side of it. Such a interesting place, AI these days, in terms of what is available to us, based on the tools available to us in the market, and then what we can build internally with tools like Claude or ChatGPT, or things that are a little bit more user friendly. So getting a individual like that to own kind of really whatever they want, if you will, based on those AI tools, and really opportunities that haven't been available to the home services industry traditionally,
Mhm.
has been very, very successful for us, at least in this initial run with this individual.
Gotcha. Wow. It definitely sounds like there's a lot of great things that happen from a talent perspective. So before we move on to our next topic here, like give us like a final pitch. And of course, we know the technician is sort of the backbone of the organization, right? So if a top talent technician is listening right now, why should they come work for Fast?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I hear most often is, we do relative to the industry pay very competitively. And part of that is us determining, the things that we can control and do well and how we replicate um, really like the ideal type of appointment taking place from the customer perspective. So the best way that we are able to gauge that is our reviews. We have a 4.9 star rating on Google My Business across all of our trades, all of our markets. And that's, really the best indicator of the type of service that we're providing at the field level in the home with the customer. So we highly incentivize all of those 5 star reviews. We do compensate all of our technicians for that high quality, level of work that we both expect and are seeing from our team. So, the biggest one is, we like to work hard, we like to play hard, not to overuse and overuse saying in the industry, but we also like to pay very well to, attract and retain that high quality talent that we know is so important. So, not to beat the money aspect to death. There are other things that we do well, internal awards and recognition, and really the things that are common in the industry. But we know at the end of the day, we want to enable people to live a fulfilling life, and one of the main ways that we do that is by trying to ensure that we're towards the top end of the market when it comes to how we compensate our folks.
Okay. I think that's definitely a huge motivator indeed, especially when it comes to attracting top talent. Every little thing, folks are looking at. So I think that's a good point. So let's talk a bit about the growth of the organization, because, when folks are looking for organizations, what they want to entertain, they want to know, where's this company going, right? So been around since 1986. Is that correct?
Yes.
How many employees now?
Um, we were probably at about 160 employees across all of our
About
markets.
160. Okay, got it. So as you continue to grow in scale, like what is the organization you think does well to whether it's processes or culture or whatnot to continue growing the company without diluting service and quality and all that?
Yeah, I think it is to understand, where we came from, if you will. We've only grown to, the scale that we are at today because of, the speed and the quality and the recognizing top talent, all of the things that I've, mentioned previously. It's important for us to not forget how we got here, if you will, and to kind of keep those key differentiators in mind and ensure that no matter the growth or, the scale that we're approaching, that the things that made us successful to begin with are still in place. These channels and mechanisms to receive and understand feedback, both from the customers, from our teams in the field, from our folks in the office, that those remain open, and that leadership is able to, receive this feedback to implement the type of corrections or new innovations that are going to enable the team further, and just that those channels remain open no matter the size or the scope of what Fast is or becomes.
Gotcha. So I heard kind of sticking to like what got you to the dance, your values and your principles, but ultimately embracing a learning culture, innovation, welcoming new ideas from the field to continue to get better. So continuous improvement, all good points. So I want to talk about the really exciting topic, and particularly because you are a marketing guy and you strike me as someone who really appreciates technology and are super savvy when it comes to this, right? So as you know, this show here is powered by Peakzi, and you are a Peakzi customer. You're the hands-on guy touching it, right? So first off, how would you explain to our viewers and listeners what Peakzi is?
Peakzi for me is clarity. There's a lot of ambiguity today just in the market and AI search in general. We refer to it as a black box quite commonly, both internally and in the industry. And Peakzi is a beacon of light into that black box. Before we can distill a strategy for how we want to improve our rankings and our recommendations inside of AI, we need to understand where we stand relative to the market And that's really what Peakzi does at a base level, both for our organization, our competitors, others in the industry, just leveraging the data that is available today to paint that picture and really give me a starting place to ideally optimize from.
Interesting. So, what are the most useful features, and also what are some specific outcomes Peakzi has helped you achieve?
Yeah, Peakzi at a base level helps us build a part of our website that is designed specifically to rank for and to pull in these AI LLM based search results. Outside of that, they create a mechanism for tracking the traffic into that site, the pages specifically that are generating that traffic, and really showing, how and why we're being returned in Gemini or ChatGPT or any of the other models. Beyond that, they're helping us understand demand relative to our markets and our specific products, equipment, services, really in general, based on what others are searching for and leaving reviews for inside of the markets that we serve. One example to give is, we are obviously in the water heater business. It's the legacy part of what we do, and a core part of what I'm trying to understand in the markets that we serve. So month to month, if water heater is, performing worse than the previous month or, God forbid, the previous year, it's incredibly helpful to understand if water heater in relation to the market as a whole has pulled back, which is something I've used Peakzi to understand for water heaters, for toilet installations, for heat pumps, for panel upgrades. It really helps me keep a finger on the pulse of what is the market producing today relative to last month, last year, and what are we pulling in or not pulling in relative to that, to the change in that market. Peakzi does far more than the three things that I'm going to touch on, but the last one is also permit demand. Peakzi paints a picture of, hey, these are what folks are pulling permits for in specific zip codes. And I'm able to leverage that data in, my direct mail campaigns, for example, to understand that folks in this city or this zip code are far more receptive just based on permit demand to this product or service versus this one. And again, if I had unlimited budget, I'm going to blast these campaigns out to everybody. But that's just not the case, and I know not a common challenge for anybody in my industry. So the granularity of the data and helping me discern, the dollar is going to go farther over here versus over here is again why I refer to them as a beacon of light inside of just a industry and a job discipline that has a lot of ambiguity.
Wow, what an amazing way to present it. I mean, you said it way better than some of our Peakzi guys, right? But what I got from that really is because marketing can sometimes feel like a bunch of assumptions, you know what I mean? But it seems like it's provided you some very like empirical data to build marketing campaigns on what actually is versus what you assume it is. So I think those are really great points. Can you report any specific business outcomes like Peakzi helped us achieve, X number of revenue, our new customer like attribution? What can you say about that?
Yeah, the big one, and it is still a little ambiguous today, but I'm starting to see sessions into a number of our websites that originate from ChatGPT, and we weren't getting really any traffic originating from that source specifically, at least on the Google Analytics side, previous to the work that we did with Peakzi. So, I'm still trying to retool for this new, AI centric world that we find ourselves in from an attribution standpoint. Trying to get better at connecting the calls themselves into our call center back to these Peakzi and ChatGPT oriented campaigns. But just the fact that I'm starting to see those phone calls on the board at all post our work, our optimization work with Peakzi is incredibly reassuring. And I assume is only going to get better and clearer as time goes on.
Awesome. Awesome. So help us with some definitions. What is AI visibility and why does that matter to home services?
Yeah, AI visibility, as we define it here at Fast Home Services, we are definitely co-opting the definition that Peakzi shares with us, and that's just the frequency in which my company comes up for a search term related to a product or service that we provide inside of a market. that we serve. So if I have a 10% visibility score for water heaters in the state of Washington, as Peakzi defines it, that means that in 1 out of 10 searches, I'm being returned as one of the options, if you will, for a query or a question related to hot water heater install, replacement, repair, etc., inside of a specific city, zip code, or market that I serve. Again, because of the work that we do with Peakzi, combined with really the legacy and brand awareness that we've been able to build up in some of these markets that we've been in for an exceptional amount of time, that visibility is closer to 60 or 70%. But my understanding of that is rooted in this model that Peakzi has built that I know pulls in just a number of data sources to help us carve out, really a general idea of how frequently we're being recommended for the products or services that we offer across the entire organization, not just one.
And why do you think being found via AI is important for the industry overall?
I think it's just the direction that folks are moving, very, very quickly. I think relative to just trends and how things change, but more and more so over traditional ways in which we used to get recommendations for things like water heater replacements or AC install. People are a little bit less focused on the reviews themselves. We often want to see a high review score before we consider, who we want to have come out to my house and give me a quote in general. But that's more the aggregate data. I'm not going to even consider someone who has below, a 4-star rating, if you will. That's the trend that we're seeing, a little less dependency on the traditional Google and Yelp reviews in general. And, depending on the news source that you read, I don't think anyone is saying that AI is one of those things that's becoming, less and less popular. It's becoming more and more adopted for just everyday life, whether that's, getting recipes or having it, find a cheap flight for a vacation. It's just becoming one of those things that people are turning to for general recommendations, not just for a water heater replacement. Again, to continue to use that example. So we're just tailoring ourselves to, attack these trends, if you will, because we believe that they're going to become more and more common just over the next couple of years. And, the race that we're doing with Peakzi, it's maybe not moving the needle immediately today, but we do understand that this optimization work that we're doing in general on, again, with Peakzi on the web end, on our, traditional SEO end, there's small changes that are going to have a large incremental impact, so that 2 or 3 years from now, when ChatGPT or Claude or the LLMs in general have displaced traditional search, assuming that the adoption continues at the rates we're seeing today, that we've laid the groundwork for success that's going to drive phone calls 2 years from now, because of, again, the activities and work that we're doing today.
Yeah. So basically, it comes down to how are people searching for things? How are people consuming information? And what's the trend? And it's increasingly more and more becoming AI focused. So, so closing out kind of the Peakzi segment of the conversation, you already started speaking a bit about it. But tell us a bit more about what the AI visibility tracker is, how you use it, and the benefits to you.
Yeah, again, I think the big thing would be understanding, especially if you're like me and you're in a number of markets, across the country. It is crucial to understand where you stand relative to your competitors, and to let really that place in the market define how you're going to generate new business, how you're going to pull in new customers, how you're going to make people who were previously unaware of your brand aware, especially in an industry that isn't necessarily what am I trying to say? We have a unique challenge in the home services industry where, I can send you a million emails, I can spin up new offers. If there isn't anything wrong with your heat pump, your air conditioner, your furnace, your water heater, your panel, there's very little that I can do to influence a decision to buy tomorrow. There has to be a problem in order for us to provide our solution. So knowing that, what are we doing to make people aware that that fast home services can provide that solution? So when they do have a problem 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now, that we are one of those companies that are considered. A big part of that is going to be our visibility inside of these AI tools. And Peakzi is the one that's able to help me distill where we're doing really well, the activities that we can replicate to the other parts of the businesses that maybe are underperforming relative to our competitors and what we're seeing in the market, and just continue to do that every day, get a little bit better, and utilizing the data that Peakzi provides in order to drive those strategic decisions and the activities that come as a result of that strategy.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So, Gaige, anything else you'd like to mention about Peakzi before we start to close things out?
No, I would just say that Peakzi has been an incredibly valuable partner, both the tool and the employees themselves. I work very closely with our account manager, Bijan, just brainstorming, trying to understand different ways that we can use the data. Again, I brought up the direct mail campaign earlier. That was something that came out of conversations with our team and the Peakzi team specifically to understand the specific data sources that they were could pull from, and the levers, if you will, that we had at our disposal as a result of the data and that they were able to pull in for us. So more data is always going to be better than less data in the world of marketing. So the fact that Peakzi is such a great steward and partner in terms of how I get my hands on that as quickly as possible is huge. So just big shout out to them, the culture they've built, the team that they have cultivated, that is just as large a part as the product itself, and how I use it.
Awesome. I appreciate those words. And of course, the shout out to the team. And that's actually a really good point because it's not just the product, it's the team. And Bijan and those guys out there, they eat, sleep, breathe AI for home services. So appreciate the shout out there. So Gaige, let's start to close out. And this is just kind of a fun lightning round just to kind of get to know you a bit more personally. So let's kind of jump into this. So you've been in home services now for, what would you say, 3, 4 years?
Oh, I'm probably 6 years now.
6 years now. Okay, got it. So, in your 6 years in home services, what would you say is the funniest service call or customer moment that you've heard of or experienced yourself?
Yeah, in my very first role, I had a marketing internship. Again, this is probably I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago now. But I was just learning, and I had a call from a customer. Who was very adamant about his HVAC system and the idea that he was spending too much money. He told me that he was down in his crawl space earlier that afternoon, and he realized that all the air in the crawl space was a very comfortable temperature related to the indoor air temperatures in the rest of the home on what I think was like a July afternoon. And he was wondering if we'd be able to come out and just reroute the air from the crawl space into the rest of the home. So really just connecting his ductwork to the crawl space. And I had to explain why that wasn't the greatest idea. Whether that's pulling in fiberglass or just any of the harmful stuff that's under our homes. And he took that well and told me that. He thought he would tackle it himself then if he didn't think that anyone would be willing to come out and do this for him. So again, don't know how that shook out. I doubt he was able to have someone come out and punch a hole in his ductwork to connect it to the crawl space. But that it happened 8 or 9 years ago, and it sticks in my mind as just a funny call from my first year. Talking with customers like that over the phone and just getting my feet wet in what ended up becoming a full-fledged career.
Love it. Educating customers. That is such a key component to home services leaders,
Yeah.
right? Especially saving them from themselves. In this
Exactly.
case.
Again, I love the creativity and the problem-solving nature, and just a very fun way that gentleman was going about it. So,
Yeah. Well, Gage, tell us something interesting about you that most people don't know about.
ah, man, that one a little bit harder. Again, I'll just say I'm a diehard Seattle Mariners fan.
Okay.
most of my life. Baseball itself is, something I give a lot of credit to in terms of, where my career went. I was probably in middle school as, what we refer to as the sabermetrics era in baseball, this highly analytical kind of post Moneyball, if you're
Yeah.
familiar at all with that philosophy and how the game kind of started to change just in the early 2000s. So big baseball fan turned big data fan that ultimately led to, I think, me being, analytical minded, if you will.
Hmm.
And just something that led to a career, and it's, a big love of mine, that I still have today, baseball analytics and the Seattle Mariners themselves. So
Yeah, man, that's a cool connection. It's always interesting to see how people take their experiences and parlay it into their career. And yeah, that's totally true. That makes perfect sense. And what a superpower you have to take that inclination and understanding and apply it to marketing. And it's no wonder you're such a nerd about like data analytics and marketing.
yeah.
I think that's cool. You're a secret weapon of fast, man. You really are. So cool. So, what is the future of home services? What do you think is the future of home services in one word or phrase?
Yeah, I think the future, at least the future that we're trekking towards, is turnkey.
Hmm.
We want to partner with people not for just a one-off water heater replacement. We want to be your go-to provider for all things inside and outside your home. We want to make it easy. We know that it's difficult. Um, really to go out and try to find a trusted partner. So we want to make it, as easy as we can to demonstrate the value that we provide to a specific home, customer, family, etc. From the onset, and then we want to do everything that we can to, really hold on to that trust. So when something does go sideways, 6 months, 12 months, could be, 5 years from the last time that we helped out with some other product or service, that you can turn to the people at Fast again for really anything inside of the home, and we can make that as easy as possible, from scheduling to payment to follow up, and really everything in between. I know others are trying to replicate something similar, and I think that all starts again with a similar philosophy of keeping the customer front of mind, and how we make it as easy as we can to go from problem to solution and repeat. So I'd say
Gotcha.
turnkey.
Turnkey it is. All right. Well, last question here for you, Gage. I know you're still super early in your career, but what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind in home services or your career overall?
Yeah, I think just trust. Whether it's the customers, it's the folks, on my team, or my peers on the leadership team. I just want people to know that when they work with me, they work with Fast. Again, they work with the marketing team at Fast. That they trust that we're going to, over deliver, if you will, either in communications, expectations, or overall outcomes. I just want someone to feel like their investment in partnering again with me, or anything adjacent to myself, was a wise decision, again based on the overall value that they receive as a result. So trust is a big thing.
Love it. Trust, a great legacy to leave behind for sure. So, Gage, this was really fun getting to know you and also Fast. So, if you would share with our viewers or listeners how to connect with you, what's the website, social handles? Tell us all that.
Yeah, Fast Home Services is going to be the big one, and going to give the best overview on kind of the overall breadth of the markets that we serve, the products and services, and really just the overall story of how we got from where we were to where we are today. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of the typical channels. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, just Gaige Baisch, if you'd like to connect or continue a conversation around marketing, AI, home services, and really anything in between.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to have all that contact information in the show notes as well. So, Gage, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. Appreciate it.
And everyone else, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Home Services Success Stories podcast, powered by Peakzi, the #1 AI platform for growing your home services business.